Hey, welcome back
Welcome back, everybody.
to teaching Russ how to play Hearts of Iron 4.
Good luck with
Yeah.
that.
So we covered a lot of the top stuff. We skipped a bunch of the buttons, but we'll get to those soon. So for this one, we're going to talk about some of the bottom buttons and some of the map stuff, basically.
Awesome.
So click on London, so we can see the little London pop-up that pops up.
Okay.
So this is like you've clicked on the London province. It is in the Greater London area.
Uh-huh.
And so you can see it highlighted like this. The highlight on your map, the bright yellow is highlighting the province. The other is highlighting the state.
Okay.
There are certain buildings and certain things that are differentiated between state and province, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So you see, it's 50 victory points. We own it. No one has any claims on it. Like, it's British. It's been British for a bajillion years, right?
Right.
Up top, these are buildings that are built within the state. So the state of London, or the Greater London area, has 9 out of 10 of its infrastructure, which is like its road system and things like that.
Okay.
It's got a level 10 airbase, which is obvious. It's got level 5 anti-air guns.
Uh-huh.
And it's got a level 1 radar station. These are things that you don't build in provinces. You build them in the entire state, and they sort of count for all of the provinces in that state, right?
Okay.
So the province where that tank is sitting over there in the forest,
Uh-huh.
it has level 9 infrastructure because it is in the Greater London area state, right?
Okay.
To the left below that, we see that the Greater London state has 9.83 million people in it. There's no resistance in the state.
Okay.
The little boxes that are empty below it are for resources. So if you click over there on Birmingham, you'll see that in that little box it has 48 steel, because Birmingham is actually producing steel. London is not producing any resources.
Freaking slackers.
All right, so go back to London, and we'll see. We've got 12 unlocked slots out of our huge maximum of 25. There are 3 military factories, 3 civilian factories, and 1 dockyard. Now, these slots are for the state, but they aren't done in levels. So if I built, let's say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra slots.
Uh-huh.
If I built 5 more military factories, I could not build any more civilian factories, right? There's just there's no room for it. And I will go ahead and say, certain focuses will unlock slots for you, and also certain tech will unlock these other locked slots, right?
Okay.
So as time goes on, we'll be able to build up to maybe 25 buildings in London, right? Of these factories. This is all factories, basically. And also refineries, oil refineries and stuff.
And so is this determined by the country or determined by how... Let's see.
So,
I'm going to click on Birmingham. One sec. Let's look. Okay, so Birmingham only has... What is that? 2 military factories and 3 civilian factories. But it has a total of what? 10 slots?
Yeah.
So what determines this? Is it population or is it location?
So every province has a weight attached to it. So if you were to go up to the north and say, let's go near Newcastle, Northern England.
Okay.
And if you mouse over one of those locked slots, it says the maximum of 25, and the urban region gives it +6, right?
Right.
If you go back down to London, we see that the megalopolis region gives it +12. That's what gives us those 12 already unlocked slots.
So is that...
And so since there's only a certain number, and I think the way it works is if we get a tech that says 20% more of these slots, it's based off of that starting number of 12. So Newcastle is never going to get the same amount of slots as London.
Right.
I think I think that's how it works. So obviously somewhere in northern Norway, if you click on northern Norway, it has 0 unlocked slot, or it's got 2 right now, and its base is only going to be 2 and it's like it might only ever get to like 5 unlock slots, even with the maximum tech capacity.
Right.
So if you're looking for places to conquer, right, these big cities like New York, for example, I think is another one of those with a whole bunch of slots and stuff, right?
Right.
The heavily populated, heavily already built up areas are the areas that have, conquering northern Norway doesn't do much for you. It gives you 350,000, people, which compared to London's, what was it, 9.8 million is nothing, right?
Right.
Although northern Norway does give us some resources. It would give us steel and tungsten. Okay, so quickly below that is a little picture, and if you click on London, it'll be a picture of like a city, because the London province is urban, and this is the terrain of it.
Oh shit. It said click to drop a nuclear bomb, and I was like, oh shit, I was clicking on that. I'm glad I didn't drop a nuke.
We have no nukes.
Thank God.
Yet.
I would have just bombed us.
You nuke via province, not via... They also did a really great job of, you can easily tell on the map what a province's terrain is. So directly to our right, plains, right? This South London part, also urban.
Right.
To the left, where that tank is, forest,
Right.
A little bit north of the tank, to the right of Birmingham, hills.
Okay.
Where's some mountains? Yeah, up in northern, by Newcastle, like those are mountains, right? It's really easy to tell by looking at the map what the terrain is, which is really cool. And terrain is important. So if you mouse over like the little picture, it'll tell you, for example, in London, all units only function at 70% attack. Enemy air support functions at negative 50% because it's harder to dive bomb people in a city, right?
Where are you seeing this?
I clicked on London. There's the picture of the little city, like the province or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I moused over the picture,
okay, I've seen it now. Urban unit effects.
Yeah. And movement is slower going through this province, right? Because it's urban. If you look over there at plains, like it's got 0 penalties and movement is at ×1 speed, right? It's just a base for plains.
Right.
Below the picture of London is the buildings that we build in a single province. These are things like ports and forts. I think it's all it actually is. So London currently has 0 land forts built in it, right?
Right.
You can have up to 10. It's got 0. If you click over to the right on the Plains province to the right of London, we see that it's got a level 10 naval base.
Okay.
And it's got 0 coastal forts because it's actually coastal. We can build coastal forts there, right? And if we were to build a fort in this province, it does not affect the London province, right?
Okay.
These are the buildings that you build province-wise.
Okay.
Cool?
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some differentiation between state and province buildings, but it's mostly ports and forts are the things you build in a single province. Anything else, it's in the state, which is going to be a sort of grouping of provinces, right?
Cool.
Like if we scroll over to United States, we see that Texas, obviously, is an entire state.
Right.
But the province of Dallas is its own province, right?
Right.
And it's not urban because Dallas was not very urban at the time. Houston, however, is urban. Okay. So on the ignore the little plus mark on the middle of your screen. We'll ignore that for now. On the far right, you see a bunch of different little buttons, right?
Okay.
The checkboxes below on the very bottom are to toggle the loop, the visual effect of day and night loop. So like, it's noon right now. If we waited till midnight, it would actually be darker and like London would be lit up. In fact, let's do that. I'm just gonna play some time for a second. There, see?
Right.
This is kind of annoying, although attacking and flying at night is worse than doing it during the day, but the option is turn off. Toggle some other little like colors for people's units and things like that. Not important. Then the 3 buttons over there are your map modes, or at least 3 of the main ones. So the default is what we're looking at now. Then we can click on the Navy button, and it will show us the Navy view.
Okay.
So you should be able to see.
What is the Navy view telling me?
Okay, so this is going to tell you important things. First, if you scroll over to the right a little bit, you should see some straits by Denmark.
Okay.
Which you don't see if you're just on the normal map mode, right? So these are important. Like, Gibraltar has one, the Suez Canal has one, the Panama Canal has one, etc. So we can quickly see, like, okay, who's in charge of it? It's currently neutral. We can pass through it, right? It shows you, like, it makes your naval bases bigger. You'll see a whole bunch of lines moving out of, say, like, all those blue and colored lines, right?
Right.
These are how we're transferring supplies and trade.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of trade moving down south past France, past Spain to go to Egypt, right?
Right.
Excuse me, trade and supplies, right? We're moving. So if someone were to cut us off, for example, at Gibraltar, we can't do that anymore.
Right.
We'd have to go all the way the fuck around Africa, right?
Ugh.
God. It also, if you scroll out, it shows you the major ocean regions. So the North Sea, the English Channel, the Western approaches, the Norwegian Sea, so on and so forth, right? And these function kind of like states and provinces as well. So you should be able to see, say, in the English Channel, that the English Channel is a state, basically, and it's broken up into essentially provinces of smaller regions, right?
Right.
We'll get more into this when we talk about how navies function, but essentially you will order your navy to patrol or whatever one of these states, and a certain amount of boats at any given time will be in a province.
Okay.
Which is to make it possible for people to actually slip past your navy, even though your navy is operating in one of these states. Like if you had the English Channel being patrolled,
right?
Theoretically, it's possible for Germany to sneak a convoy past.
Right.
Now, it would be super difficult, but if you don't have any ships there, yeah, they can just move right past you, right?
Right.
We can go to the air wing, and the air wing functions quite the same. When you order planes around, you order them to sort of patrol a entire state. So we could order planes to sort of keep watch over the entire English Channel, right?
Right.
So you don't like micromanage individual planes to fly to a certain thing. We tell them, like, I want my fighters with air superiority over the English Channel, right?
Right.
Shoot down anything that tries to fly across the English Channel, basically. Or, I want them flying in northern France or whatever, and so on and so forth. Right?
Cool.
To the buttons to the right of these main buttons, let's go back to the default map mode, by the way. Just
okay.
The little infantry dude. These are your main map mode buttons. So we can click on, starting at the bottom, we got factions. If we click on the factions button, it shows us allies, axis, Comintern. So we can scroll across the map and see that the British Raj is in the Allies.
Right.
Australia and New Zealand and I think Canada too are in the Allies, right?
Right.
And so as people join factions, it's easy just to click that button and be like, okay, I know who's who.
Which they need in Stellaris.
It would be, yeah, that would be nice. The diplomacy button shows us, the button right above it. Green is stuff we own, blue is things like allies, and red is if we're at war. We're currently not at war with anyone, so everything else is just gray, right?
Right.
Pretty handy. Resource map mode is the next one, and if you scroll in a little bit, we can see all of the resources that a state is producing.
Okay.
So, for example, Birmingham is making us 48 steel. Gloucestershire is making us 16 steel, and we've got some aluminum up north, and tungsten and chromium and stuff, right?
Right.
We've got these resources. What we don't see, because we're Britain, is oil and rubber, right?
Right.
If we scroll over to Texas, for example, Texas is producing 580 oil, which is a ridiculous amount of oil. It's probably
USA.
enough to it's probably enough to fuel America alone, right? For the duration of the fucking war. We'll talk about what resources mean later, but obviously this map mode is one of the most important if you're conquering territory.
Right.
Because you might be like, yeah, so you know, like, what am I actually going to get?
Right.
Because resources are one of the most important things, right? Like the Soviet Union, although they've got a nice bit of oil in, I think, Crimea. Where was it? Yeah. They might look down south to Romania and say, like, ooh, 70 oil in those Romanian oil fields, right?
Right.
I want it.
So here's my question. Is this oil, are these natural resources based on current values of resources or based on what was discovered back in the 30s?
It's what was discovered. So look at Saudi Arabia. They have 3 oil. And if I'm not mistaken, it changes as time goes on because they discover more oil there, and poof, they get, like, it goes up, right?
Right.
But currently, Saudi Arabia is mostly just desert right now and not really worth much.
Right.
If you look over at Iran, they have a decent amount of oil right now.
Right.
Afghanistan doesn't, right?
Right.
And so on. Yeah, so there are ways you can have techs that change, make you be able to produce more.
Right.
You can build synthetic oil and rubber factories so that if you're cut off from everything, right? So obviously, as Britain, it's really important that we control the sea, because otherwise we're not getting any oil or any rubber from anyone, because we have to import all of that. So next up on the map modes is resistance map mode, which shows nothing right now because we have no resistance, but things would be highlighted in color from like yellow to red if there was a bunch of resistance there. States map mode, so we can quickly see all of the states, right? We can see the London area, East Anglia, Cornwall,
Okay, so why are the Scottish Highlands orange and Aberdeenshire yellow?
I have no idea.
Is that just... What, it doesn't reflect anything? Let's see.
Oh. I think it's giving us rough terrain.
Oh, okay.
So, because all of the urban areas we see, like, London, Birmingham, Yorkshire, are all light blue. And the Scottish Highlands are orange, I think, because they are mountains.
Cool.
Let's look at America. How did theirs look? So... Yeah, or maybe... Oh.
It looks like it's... So you get, like, rural region versus metropolis region.
Yeah, it's also probably tied to victory points as well.
Oh, okay.
Because those are our major victory points, and, like, if you look at France, for example, its major victory points is, like, Paris, right?
Right.
Germany is going to be Berlin, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what exactly the colors mean, but there it is. And right above that map mode is the supply map mode.
Holy crap.
So if we're looking at, trust me, Hearts of Iron 3 was, like, I don't even know how the supply works in Hearts of Iron 3 still. I know how supply works in Hearts of Iron 4, though.
Awesome.
So if we just look at London, we can see that the things that all supply originates from your capital.
Okay.
Then it travels to other areas based off of infrastructure, port strength, and just sort of basic, like, how developed is the area.
Right. So
the London state, and this is state-wise again, or it's actually even bigger than state-wise, because if you look, this whole area...
Right, it's a whole southwest or southeast region.
Yeah. Has enough... It can handle 156 points worth of supply usage, and it's only using 13 right now.
Okay.
And so things like tanks are going to be using more supply. The bigger your infantry divisions, more supply, right? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
We can see that it's got, the average infrastructure in the entire area is 24, which is nice. And then the average port strength or naval base strength, etc. If we mouse over Birmingham, this is super helpful. It will show us that there's actually a bottleneck coming from the London area. So the London area has 160 and it's red and it's over infrastructure. That means that we might want to produce more infrastructure in London because in this area because they're not actually able to ship things out fast enough, basically.
And where are we seeing that? Let's see.
Over the London area, the whole thing, the little like railway, the 160 points, and how it's in red. Because it's not optimal, basically. And so if you move from there and if you mouse over Birmingham, supply is going to come from London to Birmingham, and notice that the arrow pointing to Birmingham is red. And if you mouse over the oil tank, it tells us that the previous bottleneck is the infrastructure.
Okay.
And if we continue moving up north, we see that like there's more problems that essentially they all sort of originate, I believe.
At Sussex.
The incoming. Okay, I see how. Yeah. Anyway, but it's important to every now and then check this and see, like, if I'm conquering provinces, and my units are taking a bunch of attrition, then maybe I need to build some infrastructure, right?
Right.
Like, if I'm working down my way through Africa, I might have to stop every now and then and, build some roads if I don't want my people to just starve to death and stuff.
Right, so that's like... So, can you attack these supply routes? By, via, destroying infrastructure that's there, or...
So, if you hold, say someone held... I'm looking. Say London or British still held the Scottish Highlands, but someone else controlled everything in between, and also the sea. Then the Scottish Highlands would be completely cut off from supply.
Okay.
So yes, by controlling so essentially you look where's the capital? That's where it's coming from. Everything always comes from the capital, and so you can see these supply routes down right by boat for us. If someone were, again, like we were talking about, to control the Straits of Gibraltar, then I'm going to have a really hard time getting to supplies to my men in the Suez Canal, right? It's going to go all the way around. And if they control, say, the Red Sea, then I can't get supplies to them. There's no sea route for that.
Right.
So, yeah. And so cutting off units, making them completely cut off from supplies is a big part of the sort of micro level tactical stuff.
Right.
Because taking the ports first so that your troops, even if you have a land route, the ports will help reduce that bottleneck of supplies, right? Because you can then bring more supplies into the ports.
Right.
And also, if you notice, we started with 800 convoys up top.
We're at 775?
We're now using 25 because they essentially left port and went to the Suez Canal, I believe.
Right.
So those are, if you have all your convoys bombed and don't have any left, well, then you're in trouble as well, right?
Right.
So how are we on time? Can we get to some of these buttons?
We're at 23 minutes. I think that's going to be about right.
Cool. So the
second one.
Next episode, now that we've covered sort of the major stuff and the map mode, we're gonna start looking at the real nitty gritty. These 7 buttons up top. You will be spending a lot of your time up here, looking at your production and your construction and your tech and everything. So
right.
We'll do a big episode next time on what those buttons do.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Dude. This game's very freaking intense.
It is. It's in a lot of ways it's more intense than Stellaris because Stellaris works on a much more macro level.
Right.
Whereas this combines the macro and the micro to you gotta because not only are you worried about Where in Stellaris, when you invade a planet, you just send some troops and watch them fight. You don't do
Right.
anything. But like here, we got to control every aspect of the war, right?
Right. That's something that like I'm noticing. Like, it seems like there's a lot of. It provides the flexibility for multiple play styles. If you just want to be like a freaking privateer country that just raids the freaking trade supplies and does all that crazy shit, you know, you could do that. Or you want to do straight ground force, freaking.
Well, yeah. So, like for example, Germany, they start so far behind in terms of their fleet. I mean, like America, Japan, and Britain have fucking massive fleets, right?
Right.
They're not gonna want to waste time and energy and tech to like build battleships, right? They're gonna want a large submarine fleet that's trying to destroy supplies that like America's giving to the United Kingdom or whatever, right?
Right.
Whereas the United Kingdom is gonna want a fleet that can do everything because they are so vulnerable if they don't have that.
Right.
They need to control these really important spots. Same with the United States. Like, they can't get anywhere, basically, because if you're playing a sort of historical game, they're not going to be conquering anyone, especially not Canada or Mexico, right?
Right.
They're going to need a big fleet. They're going to need a strong air force. They're going to be able to move troops to other places. Because if, for example, the United States wanted to move troops over to Britain and Germany controlled the waves in between, then those troops might not ever make it, and they're just gone because their convoys get shot by a submarine in the middle of the ocean and they all die.
Wah wah.
Womp womp. So, and like the Soviet Union also probably is not going to worry about a fleet very much.
Right.
Right. But these island nations like, Japan and Great Britain and Italy, even though it's on an island, but they need to be able to control the Mediterranean, right?
They've got a
really
huge
important.
coastline, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like if you have naval superiority in a place, like they can't naval invade you at all. They can't even really start planning their. I think they can start planning their naval invasions, but whatever. Same with Air Force. If you've got air superiority, sorry.
Naval invasion is like poking someone's belly button.
Get out.
I don't take this game serious enough.
Awesome. You can't drop paratroops if you don't have air superiority, so you need planes, right? And if you don't, then they can just drop paratroops wherever the fuck they want all over your land, right?
Right. Because you have no way to defend against it, right?
Right.
Cool. Awesome, dude. Well, I look forward to playing this game, man. As soon as I can understand it.
Well, the really complicated stuff, or at least the sort of like things you're going to be having to think about constantly while you're playing this game, like where the real strategy comes from. Like, it's one thing to decide, like, I want Romania's oil.
Right.
Right? It's another thing to sort of start making these micro decisions that are going to go on in the production level and stuff.
Right on. Well, I look forward to learning it, man. Thanks for taking me through this. It's going to be fun.
So we'll see you guys next episode. We'll get to some more of the nitty gritty.
Yep. We'll keep. We'll probably do a little mini series of just intro to Hearts of Iron, and then we'll do a co-op campaign or something.
Me versus you.
I'll just lay over.
All right. See you.
I'll be your France. You could be my Germany. It's cool.
Aww. Sweet.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
See you next time, guys.